Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your Chief Security Fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing Breaches of the Week. And before I start, I'd like to thank the people that sent me links thus far. And if I forgot your name, I'm really sorry. Let me know. I will include it next week. But Rebecca Rutherford and Chris Fowlon, guys, as always, thank you very much for sending this in. And let's dive right in. And let's start with EA Games, or Electronic Arts. Now, they just leaked personal data of over 1,600 gamers who registered to take part in a competition on their website. Now, these contenders were signing up for FIFA 20 Global Series, FIFA being a soccer game. And basically this was a competition, and they were asked to enter personal information into what would have been a blank online form. But when you went to sign up for the FIFA 20 competition, what you saw actually was populated fields of another gamer that had already signed up for this. And so obviously they had a serious form issue. EA has since corrected, and we usually don't see large mistakes like that coming from development companies. Haha. Moving on again, let's talk about Russia. Now, we're going to be talking specifically about their taxpayers. Now, a database holding more than 20 million Russian tax records were found unprotected, leaving personal tax data accessible to anyone basically with a web browser. And this is according to researchers. It was basically an open AWS instance that affected 20 million Russian taxpayers. So if you pay taxes in Russia, heads up to you. We're going to be sticking with Russia and talking about Esper Bank. That is obviously a Russian bank. Now, personal details of millions of Esper Bank customers may have been leaked in what is being considered the largest ever data breach in Russian banking history. Now, analysts at the cybersecurity firm DeviceLock found personal information relating to up to 60 million Esper Bank credit card holders for sale on the dark web. They were able to analyze the data of around 200 of these customers provided to them by the seller and verified their authenticity. So heads up to you if you are using Esper Bank for anything. Moving on, we're going to be talking about a company called Komodo. Now, some of you watching this know who Komodo is. They do antivirus and firewalls and some other software as well, and they're considered a major player in cybersecurity. Basically, and I find this interesting too, their motto is creating trust online, and here we go. Now, an anonymous researcher recently disclosed a zero-day threat in a popular internet software called Bolton, and then the cybersecurity firm Komodo basically disclosed and said that their own forum was hacked that affected about 170,000 users. So if you are using Komodo's forum, heads up, they got hit with the Bolton hack, and basically your data got exposed. Moving on, we're heading to the University of Iowa Hospital and Clinics. Now, according to UIHC, they had a breach on April 24th of 2019 after an email associated with a research project was sent out. This affected 950 patients. These patients were supposed to be blind copied on this email, and instead they were accidentally linked. And here we are. Now, moving on, we're heading to North Florida. Now, there is a place called a medical facility called North Florida OBGYN. They've notified their patients of a data breach of their system on basically July 25th is when they notified it, but they believe the cyber incident happened on or before April 29th. I couldn't find more information on this, but obviously if you use North Florida OBGYN, heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about Zendesk. And I've actually gotten some pretty interesting messages and calls regarding this, from colleagues and customers that use Zendesk. This is customer service software, and I quote Zendesk. We recently were alerted by a third party regarding a security matter that may have affected the Zendesk support and chat products and customer accounts of those products activated prior to November of 2016. So basically, if you've been using them for a while, heads up. While our investigation is still ongoing, on September 24th, 2019, we determined that information belonging to a small percentage of customers was accessed prior to November of 2016. Now, this is obviously a very serious issue. A lot of IT companies and internal IT staff use Zendesk basically to run the support operations for their customers or their actual company itself, which potentially has very damning and critical information in there. So heads up Zendesk users. Moving on, let's talk about the the supermarket chain of HyVee. Now, I mentioned this actually back in August. I had to go back and look because it sounded really familiar, and this is actually an update, which is why it's back in the news. Now, just as a brief overview, they had a data breach that affected some of their fuel pumps, drive-through coffee shops, and restaurants, ones including what they call Market Grill Express, and Wahlburger locations, and some cafeterias in their corporate headquarters. Now, they are coming out and basically saying they now have the cities and all of this. And the cities that I could find that were where HyVees were affected by this in Iowa were Cedar Rapids, Coralville, Iowa City, and Marion. In Illinois, it was Peoria, Bloomington, and Galesburg. So heads up to HyVee customers and shoppers that are watching this in any of those cities, your data may have been compromised. Moving on, let's talk about Bolton schools. This is coming out of the United Kingdom. Now, personally identifiable information on hundreds of children, including their names, addresses, and schools, has been quote-unquote misplaced. Now, the missing document is believed to reveal the personal details of all Year 7 pupils in 2 secondary schools within the Bolton School District. Now, Bolton NHS Foundation Trust has launched an internal investigation after the school nursing team lost this list, and it also includes their dates of birth and home addresses as well. So if you're in the UK and you go to Bolton schools or have a child there, more likely in Year 7, heads up to you. Moving on, we're talking about the state of Oregon's Judicial Department. They are reaching out to those who may have been impacted by a data breach. Now, the department was targeted by a hacker on July 15th of this year, and the attack basically hit their Outlook 365 accounts and was eventually contained within 4 hours. And so, heads up, it's a small window, but if you have anything to do with the Oregon Judicial Department, you might want to look into that. Next, we're going to be moving to Kaiser Permanente. That is the massive medical corporation. Nearly 1,000 members may have been impacted by a data breach. For about 13 hours on August 19th, an unauthorized person was able to access a Sacramento provider's email account. So basically it's a Permanente provider in Sacramento. They were able to access the email account that contained personal and medical information belonging to 990 members. Now, this is according to the North California Regional Compliance Director for Kaiser Permanente, and here we are. So if you are in Sacramento and you use Kaiser Permanente, heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about Zynga. This is the place that makes Word with Friends, Farmville, Draw Something, all of this. You might have actually even heard about this one. And here's what's going on. 218 million people were affected that play Words with Friends and Draw Something. A lot of people are sticking with the Words of Friends, but it's above and beyond that. Now, the hacker that hit them has also hit several other games and institutions, and basically this hacker was able to validate that they had done it, and Zynga did actually say, yeah, this happened to us. And so if you play Words with Friends or Draw Something, your name, email address, login ID, hashed password, which is SHA-1 salted, password reset token if you ever requested one, phone numbers if you provided it, Facebook ID if you connected it to Facebook via the single sign-on option, and the Zynga account ID were all exposed to this individual. And so heads up with you. You may obviously be affected because 218 million people is probably every player of Words with Friends, etc. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today for Breaches of the Week is that we are seeing two hardcore sectors being really hit, or two sectors being hit really hardcore, if you will, in that sense. I guess my dyslexia is kicking in here. So basically what we are talking about is we have a lot of small governments that are under attack. We've seen basically statewide threats. See Georgia, the state of Texas, Illinois as well, with all these small towns and municipalities getting ransomware breaches. But the one I want to focus on today is actually hospitals, because I've been seeing a trend as I do Breaches of the Week, where every week I am mentioning medical facilities. I just mentioned a few in here, Iowa and North Florida OBGYN and Kaiser Permanente and all of that kind of stuff. But we are actually starting to see something that is potentially life-threatening, which is why I want to talk about this. And that is ransomware affecting entire hospital systems in one shot that is effectively knocking out hospitals and the hospitals are not able to take on patients or care, which could potentially mean serious harm or even death, let's say in an emergency situation. So think about this, the DCH health system in Florida, and these are all smaller health systems, but their DCH Regional Medical Center in Tuscaloosa, Fayette Medical Center, and Northport Medical Center all had to temporarily shut down as a result of ransomware. The UAB Medicine, which I believe is the University of Alabama in Alabama, basically said this past Friday that hackers got in and were able to see 20,000 patients' health information, very deeply. The Gippsland Health Alliance in New Zealand, basically they have hospitals in Warrnambool, Colac, Geelong, Warragul, Sale, and Bairnsdale, as well as a lot of different smaller towns, were basically hit very hard with ransomware and had to shut down. This ends up being an incredibly serious problem, and one of the reasons why these hospitals, or rather these entire systems, and these are smaller systems, these are not the 500 hospitals across the United States, God forbid, but that's probably coming at some point, is that they oftentimes are centralizing their database. They're centralizing their infrastructure, which means all of these hospitals are probably remoting into a central facility, a data center, a cloud provider, whatever that is. And so if we are able to hit the data center, the cloud provider, whatever, we can potentially knock out or ransom or lock out multiple hospitals and medical facilities at a time. The one in New Zealand is specifically egregious because a lot of times these hospitals are basically the only real access to medical care that a region, a town, a city, a municipality has. And when that goes out, that is very difficult. Now we've seen in the non-hacking world where denial of access due to, let's say a lack of access to a hospital has killed somebody. There was a whole Bridgegate thing in New Jersey, for example, that wasn't a hacking incident, but the bridge was shut down, and I'm not going to debate why. A lot of people blame Governor Chris Christie. I honestly don't know the whole story, but somebody died in an ambulance on the way to the hospital because the bridge was apparently intentionally shut down, and by virtue of that, we had a serious issue. This is no different, except that I think it's significantly worse in the sense that it's not that the hospital wasn't accessible, it's that the hospital wasn't accessible at all. That's it. If they can't get to medical records, they can't look anything up on you to see if you've got any kind of allergy. Incoming ambulance, they won't be able to register this. It is a very serious issue. And then you start tying in the environment in the hospital to the systems, like how we control everything from electrical to heating and air and all of that, and you potentially have an incredibly damaging situation. And so we have a lot of compliance law in the United States for hospitals under HIPAA for data security and all of that. I have no doubt that New Zealand has their own, as does everybody else on the planet. But this is a problem that isn't going away, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. And we need to make sure that if we are working in the hospital field in cybersecurity, and I'm talking to my HIPAA-based colleagues here that are working with hospitals and hospital systems like this, we really need to make sure that we are just turning up cyber defense to 11. We're getting good products. We're employing good data security. We've got that user awareness training. We're enabling the multi-factor authentication. We are monitoring and managing everything live through things like SIMs and other awareness utilities and all of that. We need to make sure that we're getting a real hold on this, because quite frankly, people's lives are on the balance. And I also think that the punishments for hackers that are caught breaking into medical facilities, while I think nobody should be broken into, I don't care if you're a bank or a medical facility or just a local coffee shop, there should be harsh punishments. But when you're putting people's lives at line, I think that really needs to be taken into consideration when prosecution comes. So take that for what it's worth. But those are your breaches of the week. And hopefully you weren't affected. But if you like to play games, you might have been. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me on YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.